he's still dead to her in a way.
Yes,
even though the body is here.
That's a good point.
Even though most of his memories are here, my time spent with him in which we developed some kind of bond, even though it was short, is dead. And that person is gone. And it's really cool that like death still means something even to the androids, even if it's just losing a little bit of your memory. It's like, that's kind of what makes us who we are our experiences and our memories. Right? Yeah. It's like... Welcome back to the State of the Arc podcast. My name is Mike.
My name is Kason.
This is episode 2 of our NieR Automata analysis. We're going to be getting into the game itself today. I have not played this game in a while. It's really good.
It's wonderful.
It's awesome.
I remember watching, I think it was Landon or maybe you who was playing it a lot back in the day. And I just didn't see enough. Like I mentioned earlier, I thought it was Bayonetta again. Like I just didn't really know what I was seeing. But I will tell you what, this game reminds me so much of the original NieR, and it just reminds me of how special that game is. And that game was so good. I actually, as I'm taking my notes, I'm wondering, because we brought up the possibility that you might want to play NieR Automata first and then go back and play NieR. Maybe we shouldn't draw a connection to all of
I was thinking the same thing.
many similarities that these two games have. Okay, good. Because they're everywhere. And just know that the connections are everywhere. And maybe we shouldn't bring up every single one for people who want to play the other one after this.
There was probably at least 2 or 3 places where I had a thought of what I could write down as a note. I was like, you know what? If I said that would kind of spoil the first NieR. So
and
maybe
it's
I shouldn't.
Such a special game. I don't know. I feel a great attachment to these NieR games.
Yeah, they're both amazing. So, but I just, I guess it's not that I forgot. It's just kind of a refresher, a reminder. Like this game is actually really good.
It's excellent.
I'm excited to dive back into it after we finish this podcast and go into content for next week. So we told everybody to play up to Ending A.
Which was about 10 hours-ish.
Yeah. Hopefully people have made a decent dent into that because it's kind of long for 1 week.
But you do not need to have played up to that point for this episode.
No, because I'm only really prepared to talk up to the point of where you arrive at the amusement park. So right after the birth of Adam and Eve in the desert, and you fight them there, and then you go to the amusement park. That's where I stopped. I stopped at Disneyland. That was it. So that's what we're going to do today. But who knows? Maybe that'll turn into 2 episodes. We never know that.
No, we don't.
We'll see what happens.
But we don't. One quick note here. This is the most recent game that we've covered on this podcast. Right?
Oh, yeah, like the most recently released game.
Yes, the most recently released game.
Until Final Fantasy 16, which will be
it's coming. That's
happening. June 22nd.
But Final Fantasy VI was the oldest game.
That's true.
That we had done in this.
We just went from the oldest to the most recent. That's
there's going to be some what do you call it? Culture shock, or what's the shock? Something shock. Time shock.
Yeah.
Some jet lag.
Things in games have changed since these 2 games came out. I was actually thinking about that too. I was like, man, what if this idea had been pitched to Hironobu Sakaguchi back in 1995?
Gosh, well,
what kind of game would this have been?
It wouldn't have been this for sure. Not even close. Especially if it was published on the Nintendo system.
Right.
They would have censored so much. But a lot of the gameplay elements, a lot of like the battle elements of this game are kind of 90s era, like with the side-scrolling, the bullet hell, arcade stuff, the top-down, the dodging pink gumballs. Like that's all arcade 80s and 90s era gameplay. So that stuff would have been very similar, I think.
Oh, sure.
The story and the character design and all that, maybe not so much.
Who knows? But
it probably would not have been released in America at all.
That's actually not a bad point.
So we forgot to talk briefly about the install screen as the game is loading up before your first playthrough. There are some questions that you're asked, and they're very interesting. They don't really affect the game, but they do kind of get you into the mode, right? They'll ask you things like, why was the world created? And you can say if you believe in God or not, or whether everything is just chance. And each question leads you to down a different path that somehow kind of ends up circling back at the first question that you were asked, and you kind of second guess all of your assumptions. and everything takes you back into a different loop. And it's a cycle that you don't exactly escape from. It just keeps going. And I think that's the point. It keeps you second-guessing yourself, second-guessing everything, and then before you know it, the game's ready to play, and you kind of forget all about it and start the gameplay. But as loading install screens go, I thought it was very interesting.
The very first thing you see as it opens up is kind of in the, well, up high in the sky.
Yeah,
and there's a quote on the screen as 2B says, everything that lives is designed to end. We are perpetually trapped in a never-ending spiral of life and death. Is this a curse or some kind of punishment? I often think about the God who blessed us with this cryptic puzzle and wonder if we'll ever have the chance to kill him.
Yeah, classic.
What do you think about that line?
I thought it was great. I wrote a whole piece underneath it. So I talk
imagine
about
that would be the case.
The death of God, right? Mm-hmm. So this is Nietzsche, at least in part. Also, but what it really reminded me of is kind of why games and shows and especially anime and things around, I don't know, like the 90s and the early 2000s to the, what would you call it? 2000 to 2010?
Yeah.
Anyways, the idea of in a game how you got to go kill God is so interesting, and it's fascinated me for a very long time. But I'm going to bring in Joseph Campbell and of course Vladimir Prop into this a little bit because sometimes the atonement with the Father ends in the killing of the Father. And I've mentioned this in other games, but I don't want to spoil it because it's basically the ending of those games. But there are other games where this kind of thing happens, and it's like some of it. These games are marketed towards teenagers.
Yep.
Some of it is like down with authority.
Yep.
Screw the parents. Screw authority, and nobody can control me. All that stuff. And then, of course, this led me in my thinking. Of course, Joseph Campbell. Part of where he gets a lot of this from is Sigmund Freud, and Freud talks about the subconscious desire for a son to kill one's own father in his analysis of the Oedipus myth, right?
Yep.
So the Oedipus myth isn't just the son and the mother, becoming connected in an unnatural way, but it's also about the son killing the father in order to have the mother to himself, right?
Right.
And that is often ignored. But when we're talking about killing God, Freud and Jung did a lot of work in this regard. Also Joseph Campbell, that the atonement with the Father and even sometimes the killing of the Father or the replacing of the Father with yourself, that those things can be also interpreted as God. Not just your father, right? So your father's kind of a stand-in for God, or God is a stand-in for the image of your father, right? And so when you're killing God, you're really just killing your mental image of your own father, right? Because that's the image that you would have of God anyways. Okay, so I think that's fascinating. Freud also had this idea that a boy does not become a man until his father has died. What do you think about that? Just like, what does that bring to your mind? Like when you're around your father, do you feel like you're just this manly, big old man? Or do you kind of feel like a kid?
I know where you're going with this.
Because I kind of feel like a kid.
and I would generally say yes to that too. I think that my dad, particularly in recent years, has had so many health problems.
Oh, that's true.
Like we used to go to the gym together and stuff when I was in high school, and we were on and off with this like going and working out together thing.
Yeah.
And in recent years, I've far surpassed my father's strength and stamina. So
I have not experienced that yet. My dad is still going strong like an ox.
Yeah.
But perhaps before he dies, I may have the chance to
kind of the shift a little bit.
Yeah, because at some point it does change, right? Where it's like now you're providing service to your dad.
Yeah.
For me, at least at this moment, I see what Freud is saying, right?
Yeah.
Like I think I'm a man until I stand next to my dad, and then I'm like, yeah, I'm still just a kid, right? All of a sudden I feel like a boy. I don't feel like a man.
Yeah.
And there's this idea that like it's not just that. It's not like you want to kill your dad, like consciously for real or any of that.
Literally,
but there's this tension, right, within you.
Yeah.
That's like you can't achieve your maximum potential if there's still someone out there who's above you.
There's
Right?
a person, a figure who represents sort of an authority over you.
So then, in that sense, you're subservient to something, right? And there's this desire to just break the bonds and just be free and all that kind of stuff. So, I find that absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to read that.
So when I read this, and of course in the multiple games where this concept has happened or evolved, or this exact scenario has kind of played out, I'm slowly starting to kind of apply it, this more mythological or archetypal kind of lens to it, to why is this so appealing? Why is killing God so appealing for teenagers in particular?
Well, I think in the existentialist view, it would be about freedom. It'd be about achieving your freedom.
Yes, which you can't do when you're under someone's thumb.
Right.
Right.
Right. So I think that's a really good way to look at that opening line. And I'm just going to say this. Well, I'm actually going to save a little bit of what I'm going to say about this for later when the robots start talking. But I do think if there is any weakness in Yoko Taro's writing, which is hard to determine when there is a whole element of localization that happens and it's not his native language you're reading it in.
I wonder that.
It's hard to judge that, right? But I do feel like he can be at times just like a tad bit on the nose. It's just like, okay, a little more subtlety might have made this get the impact I think he's trying to get out of me with it. But I think it's overcome by just the ideas being so fascinating. The tone is so good. Like, it's so unique. Everything just feels so kind of fresh in his stuff that, like, it's not weak enough. It's not on the nose enough to be, like, cringy to me. But it's just like, don't come quite as strong on that. This line gives me a little bit of those vibes, but not nearly as much as later, so I'll get onto that. But when you put it in that light, I actually feel like the whole trope of killing God in JRPGs, which is kind of a meme at this point, maybe is put into a light where, that actually applies a little bit more than maybe you imagined it did, right?
Yeah.
So I like that. I like that a lot. Okay, so
you've actually you've skipped over the first note I have, though.
You have one before
just the pause screen.
The quote.
It's just the pause screen. So what is it? No, the start screen. That's it.
Yeah.
Right. Continue and all that.
That's right.
There's a lot that you can kind of read about this game just right there, right at the very beginning. Right. So there's the sun that's trying to shine through dense clouds in a foggy atmosphere. You have everything is really desaturated and muted. There look like the remains of buildings, like on the sides, and that plants are overgrowing, right? That nature is kind of reclaiming some what used to be industry, built by mankind. There's a destroyed building. There's a large river, and across from that is an entire city that's silhouetted. On the screen are some vines, right? And then an unbloomed flower, kind of like to the bottom right
the
in the middle.
Important.
The flowers are important, and you know this from some Drakengard and his other NieR games. Yeah. But it's not yet bloomed. It's like closed, right? But it hasn't yet bloomed.
Hasn't opened yet.
So I thought that was very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Then you've got a bunch of vines. In the middle, we see the title, NieR Automata, which flickers as if something's like wrong, like there's digital interference or something like that.
Yeah.
The text of the title is all in black and white. So you got everything white and then like a line and then everything's black, right? So the black and white motif is going to be very important.
Yeah, you're going to see that a lot, and especially in probably towards the end of the opening sequence, but yeah.
Yeah. So there's some digital artifacting as well. Like it's so weird how they did it, how they created the title. I guess we don't have the title on here, but it's in black, and you see like pixels and compression and all this weird, kind of effect going on. It's very interesting. The I in NieR, and the word NieR is a cog, right? So it's like a gear. You've got the digital, the mechanical, the industrial, and the natural all together in this scene. However, the battle between nature and technology, we see that nature is slowly eroding. It's winning, and it's eroding what technology has built. So the text, after you select new game, it gets all staticky and glitchy, right? And then the particles, there's a bunch of particles, but they're going up, they're not going down. Right? So that's really important. They're moving upwards. So things are not settling down on Earth. Things are rising up. Things are detaching from Earth, right, and going upwards. All right, so that's the title screen.
There we go. Thank you for bringing that up.
Oh, and then a dip to white, not a dip to black.
Yeah, a dip to white.
So you click continue, and everything goes white instead of black. So that's very important as well.
So I really, really liked this kind of opening sequence of the game.
Yeah,
I remember
it was good.
Before I started the playthrough, thinking, based on just my memory of having played this years ago, I'm not sure how I'm going to feel about this opening sequence. I think NieR Gestalts is a lot stronger in this game.
Oh, well, that's
NieR Gestalts might be like
really
one of the strongest intro sequences freaking ever, but
you can't hold that as a critique on this game.
The standard is high there.
Yeah, the standard is high.
But even despite kind of having that feeling, when I started it up, I just got really into this right away. I was just kind of feeling like I was synchronizing with the rhythm of the storytelling and the pacing of it and the music.
You know what's great? So you get it, you feel like you're getting it down, you're like, all right, I'm doing this. This is great. And then a massive red beam comes and just kills one of your teammates. And you're like, okay. And then the gameplay starts to shift a little bit. Some harder enemies show up, some more complex patterns to avoid. And you're like, yeah, I'm getting this. Woo. And then boom, the laser hits again, kills another one of you. And it's just like trying to balance the fun arcade-like gameplay that this game has with also the fact that these are people. Once they die, their radio signals go off and everyone's like, we just lost 4B or whatever it is. Not 4B, but
11B, 7E, 1D. 4B is one of them though.
Oh, 4B is one. How about that?
4B is the final one that goes down before 2B.
But 4B, we see 4B later.
Well, all of these,
I forgot.
All of these people get revived anyway.
You're right. Death does not have the same meaning in this game.
But it does have a pretty interesting twist on the idea of death, which we'll get to in a second. But the mission here is to basically go down to the surface, and they've scouted out this facility, this old machine facility, where there's a Goliath class enemy that they're meant to take out. So that's kind of the mission, the goal, the objective here. Yeah. So as they're flying down, like you're saying, it is like launching this giant laser beam that's taking us out one at a time. 2B is actually not the captain or commander of this squadron at the beginning. I thought that was a really interesting point.
You kind of assume that leadership
there's another
later.
ship that's white, and the rest of them are kind of dark gray. And it's when, I think it's 1D gets shot down, and that was the captain of the squad, that 2B assumes the captain's responsibility.
Just seamlessly, too.
Yeah, and then just her flight, whatever it is, flight suit turns white.
Yeah, that's right.
And she's in charge now.
Yeah, I like that.
So that was pretty sweet. And then everybody in the whole squad except her gets taken down.
Yep.
So she's the last one, and she sort of breaks into the place, but her flight suit gets damaged, and so she's on foot.
Yeah.
She's fighting this big buzzsaw arm, and 9S in another flight suit. I think this is kind of an interesting point that he's actually in that because of something he says later, but he comes in and kind of helps her and introduces himself. So we get an introduction to two of our main characters here. And he says, better make sure he's actually dead next time. That was dangerous, ma'am. You're 2B, right? My name's 9S. I'm here to provide support. Now, I wondered how much I wanted to get into this note that I had here. We talked about this a little bit in Xenogears about how dialogue is written for robots versus human characters in shows like Star Trek.
Oh, yeah.
I forget,
they kind of overdo the emotionlessness.
I think the trope is called Spock speak.
Oh, yes. Yeah, right? Yeah. You're talking about that before.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, that's it.
So they had Saitan speaking very robotically like that, and I was kind of giving my grievances about it. I think he should talk a little more like a human being and less like a robot. But what's interesting is they don't do that for the androids in this game. The androids speak very much in a more casual style. And I thought that was an interesting choice. Usually, for characters like this, that's how they would try to separate them from someone having emotions or whatever, is they would make them speak in this very stunted way. But they don't really do that. They really kind of speak naturally. But they kind of have this balance. They're not monotone, which I think if they had tried to do that, it might have been really hard to attach to
absolutely.
the characters.
In fact, I think they on purpose don't know that you're dealing with automatons or androids. You don't know that you're dealing with androids until like basically 9S gets his leg blown off. And you're like, whoa, that's a robot leg, right? Like until that point, that's kind of surprising actually, because you not only do you assume they're humans just because like they look like humans, but also they talk and sound just like humans, and so it's really kind of surprising when you realize that these aren't humans, and that I don't know that I feel like that can clue you into a lot of what Yoko Taro was trying to do with this game.
Yes,
right. Where when you realize they're robots, you're like, oh, whoa, robots. Whoa, that's weird. But I thought they were people, but. Can robots be people? Yeah. I don't know. And that's like the central question of the whole game. That's
basically, they're trying to understand what it means to be human themselves.
Yeah.
And what's interesting, and we'll get into this when you see some of the machines starting to talk later, is they feel like they understand humanity and the machines can't.
Yes.
But the machines start exhibiting behaviors and language and things like that show that they're trying to understand it. And then you start to question a little bit about, okay, how much do these androids really understand humanity? Anyways, it's a great question, but like I love how they don't, in the way that they speak, they give them a very human sort of like cadence and rhythm and in the way that they talk, which allows you to be able to connect with them better. So I thought that was a good choice there. But this was an interesting line here. So 9S says, scanners like me mostly work alone, scouting out enemy lines and all that. I don't usually get a partner. It's kind of fun. And she says emotions are prohibited. So there wouldn't be a prohibition on emotions unless it was possible to feel emotions.
That's true. That's true. So they are programmed to have that potential.
The androids have some capacity to feel emotion, right? Yeah. And it seems 9S is more open to express those.
That's right.
Maybe than some of the other Yorha units are.
Yeah.
So he apologizes. Sorry, ma'am. And then she's like, and another thing, stop calling me ma'am. It's unnecessary.
Right.
Right. So she doesn't like him being so formal. Just call me by 2B. He's like, all right, 2B, sounds good. So let's see. Next note I took is she says, this place sure is big. As she's like running, because he goes off to sort of scout in the flight suit around and like gather map data and like send it to her later. And so she's on foot trying to infiltrate and find this Goliath-class enemy.
That's kind of what he does. 9S is he's got the technical...
scouter.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So she says, this place sure is big. And he says, I guess humans used it as a weapons factory, but now it's just crawling with machines. The enemy seems to have repurposed the facility to increase their overall machine production. So if we don't destroy it, they'll keep on coming. And then over the intercom, 2B hears something. And she goes, what? And he says, it's just accessing random nonsensical data from the old world. There's no actual meaning behind anything machines do. So it's kind of a multifaceted thing I want to talk about. First of all,
9S will say that a lot.
The idea of there being no meaning behind anything machines do.
Yes, zero.
Linking into this idea about meaning being inherent or not. The existentialist versus the essentialist view, I guess, right? The nihilistic view.
As we brought up before, does essence precede existence or does existence precede essence?
Right, exactly. Sorry. Can the machines become human?
Right.
Do they get to determine that?
Yes,
or is the essence of what they are already what they are and there is no meaning to that?
Exactly.
So that's one part of that I thought was interesting. The other thing is that this is the first plant that the machines are in an old human facility. They are accessing data from the old human world.
Right.
And they are adopting cultural practices and ideas and speech from the old human world.
Right.
And that's just going to keep escalating through the game. But his first reaction to that is there's no meaning behind this. They're just accessing random data. But the fact that it continues to become not only more frequent that they do this, but more obviously not random.
Yes.
And like showing that they actually understand to some degree what they are saying.
So they access the human data and then they seek to embody it.
Yes.
And then they access more data and then they try to embody that data that they found.
Yes.
Right? It's very interesting.
So this is like the first sort of setup for that, right? It's like the machines, it's almost like in every scene that we see up through what we're talking to today, they're just a little bit better at being able to understand what they're accessing from the old world and apply it in a way that makes sense.
Right.
So they're just beginning to do that, or have recently just begun to do that. So
that's great.
That's pretty cool.
I got to say, this is really good world building from the very beginning. After the dip to white, we're above the clouds. We go below the clouds, we're above the ocean.
Yep.
Then we're above the land,
Yep.
and then we land on the land and start running.
Yes.
Right? So you got light, water, land, and then, we fill the land.
This is the order.
This is the order of
which
creation.
the world was created.
Yes, and this is
in
how
Genesis.
And when the beginning of a game, you're creating the world of your game, and so it just makes sense that it would kind of follow that.
Yeah, this is another
process.
game that you were saying could fit into your whole video idea on the birth of the hero. Or
yes.
Which one is it?
The Garden of Eden.
Garden of Eden
Yes.
concept. Yeah,
Yeah, the motif that is shared by many games.
Yes.
But also, it's really cool when 9S shows up. He kind of swoops in and he's above. It's so interesting. He's above 2B in a very interesting way that kind of makes him look sort of like an angel, right? Mm-hmm. Like he saves her and then he's like hovering above her, but he's in like a mech that's like totally black, right?
Yeah.
But he's something like a guardian angel kind of thing for her, right?
Yeah.
So that's really good.
Good stuff. So here she kind of comes outside again, and she's surprised to see birds flying off in the distance.
Yeah, she or maybe is it 9S or 2B?
2B. She says, "Is that?" And then he's like, "You mean the birds?" Yeah, there's more plants and animals here than there used to be. Probably because the environment's changed.
That's very good. Now this is what's really changed is there's no humans.
Yes.
Right. So no humans equals more plants and animals. Right.
Yep. That's right. Okay, so this is a part where she kind of, after this, she kind of comes up to that big bridge, and they're saying, "Oh, we didn't find the Goliath-class enemy here." And across this bridge, this huge freaking long bridge going out to sea, there's another facility out there. Maybe we should try there next. There. But then it comes out.
2B is like, it's not like them to be wrong.
Yes.
Right?
For the data,
yes.
What do you call it? Intelligence from...
Yes. From command, right? From headquarters. That's really good. She has a lot of faith in command. She has a lot of trust. She does what she's told. She follows the orders, right? She doesn't ask many questions. If they're wrong, it's like no, that can't be wrong.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a little bit of orthodoxy here.
Sure.
And she's right. They weren't wrong. Basically, what would you call it? The monster they were looking for was the factory, in part, like part of the factory, right? It's just this massive, I think it's a Goliath. Do they call it a Goliath?
Yeah, a Goliath class, whatever it is. And it's the two buzzsaws. She fights that first.
That was such a cool boss
And
fight.
then they get pulled back into the full thing as it stands up and it reveals that those are the arms, right?
Right.
And then 9S joins her and they're kind of fighting together. She's on the ground. He's shooting from the air.
He is. Until he kind of saves her. And they do games and anime and movies and everything. They do this where it's like she totally had time to dodge the hit, right?
Yeah.
But instead she doesn't dodge it. And it's like, I think they're trying to convey the emotions and give enough time for the emotions of what's happening. And they're not trying to tell you that this is the exact timing of what happened, right? Because she so easily could have dodged that. But instead she stands still for 5 seconds and just looks at the thing that's about to hit her. So 9S has to save her and knock the thing away. But of course he gets jacked in doing so. And so he ends up on top of the neck, right?
He has to evacuate from his flight suit thing. And he just lands on the top of it.
So that's when we get on and we climb the Goliath, right? That's really fun.
But one important detail about him is he hacked the enemy first and used its own missile system against it.
That's right.
That's what pissed it off. And so that's kind of 9S's main ability, I guess.
He's a hacker.
He hacks into things.
Yeah.
And we'll get way more into that after ending A into kind of the second part of the game. But anyway, she after she told him emotions are prohibited, she then displays quite a lot of them herself.
Oh yeah.
As she goes up there trying to rescue him, right?
Yep.
She
ignores protocol from command.
Yes.
Right? Because they're saying, "Oh, leave him. Don't worry about him."
Yeah, her
just
robot,
finished the mission.
Pod 043, I think, is the little thing that follows her. It's hey, there's no point in doing what you're telling me. He can't be revived with those wounds. She's like, "Shut up! Just do what I say."
Don't talk to me. Yeah. And that's especially because of what happens later, that's very, very, very interesting.
Yeah. One thing I want to say about Pod real quick, I really like how they use this character as a means of...
like the rational...
Yeah, but
no feeling robot.
Yeah, the truly like unfeeling robot, right? As a source of humor and like lightening of tension. I think they use this character really well for that. So there's a part where the enemy goes down under the bridge, kind of like dives under the water, and what he says is, "Alert! Incoming enemy attack from below. Proposal." Evade.
Yeah. Or hypothesis. Yeah. Or analysis. Yeah. That's so funny. It actually kind of reminds me of Mass Effect with who are the guys that can't show emotions? What were they called?
Oh, the Geth.
Is it the Geth? No, not the dudes. They look like weasels.
You're talking about the aliens. Sorry. The aliens that like they have to say
their emotion
because they're monotone.
Surprised.
Yeah,
or
they have
something
to
like
mention
that.
This is my emotion. Now I'm going to tell you what I'm saying.
This reminded me of that when he says hypothesis or suggestion or any of that stuff.
Yeah.
That's what that always reminds me of.
Yeah.
But as 9S is like dying, essentially, he speaks of pride and the like, right? So he's like, oh, it was an honor serving with you and all that kind of stuff. And just stuff that you would expect humans to do and not at all robots.
Yeah.
But so they may be androids, but for the purposes of this game, they are essentially humans. And this is where it's, of course, revealed that 9S is indeed not entirely human.
Yeah. And then... let's see here. So she has to take his flight suit.
Oh, yeah.
And fly up and finish the boss with it. But she hears the enemy saying, kill, kill, kill.
Yeah, it's like at this point. Yeah.
It talks like this has never happened before. Right. I didn't know machines had that kind of intelligence. So I think they've planted, talking about intros and how important they are as hooks, they've planted some really interesting mysteries in this one. And that is... the machines seem to be adopting behaviors, language, cultural customs and things like that from the old human world. And why are they doing that? And they're not supposed to do this, and they're not even supposed to be really intelligent. They're supposed to be just mindless automatons that came and wiped everything out.
By that same token, so are the androids.
Yeah, sure.
Right? Why do I get how Yoko Taro's choosing to tell the story.
Yeah.
But implicit in this whole story is like, but also you.
Yeah.
Why do you feel pride in serving?
Alive? Yeah,
exactly.
What makes an android more alive than a machine?
Yes, but then Yoko Taro would also want you to apply that same
to
yourself.
What you should you more alive?
Say, why are you more special then? And he's good at that.
Yeah, so there's definitely a lot of that is being set up here, and a lot of mystery behind what are these machines doing. Something's different. Something's not right. They shouldn't be acting like this, right?
Yeah. So
she finally brings it down. She took a lot of damage. She goes down where 9S is at, and they're, injured and three more of these things just like pop
that was
up
really
out of the
cool. They show like a shot from like 400 yards away, just like looking down at them, and it's like you see these big Goliaths like rise up from the water and surround them, and it's like, oh my gosh, how like messed up she got through just fighting one of these, and now 9S is out of commission, right? Like, what's going to happen now? And I didn't expect this. Now, once again, I have not played this game before. That doesn't mean I know nothing about it. I did, like I mentioned, you and Landon, and it's been hard to avoid, spoilers about this game for 6 years.
About it,
I never thought I would play it, though. So, anyways, I wasn't too wary about spoilers. But I was not expecting this, the whole self-destruct thing.
Yeah.
Right? So they get together, and it's like, I guess we have to do the thing. And
black box
2B
reaction.
didn't, want to do it, but it's like, we really don't have a choice, right? So they get close, and they touch their cubes together, and they blow up. And then...
they take out the Goliaths with them, so
it's a big explosion. And then they wake up on the space station.
Yeah.
And everything's fine.
Yeah. So...
What?
A really cool way to leave off an intro.
Really
the characters
good.
we just met died. Oh wait, they're not dead. Okay, there's another mystery. Why is that? And so I think
there's
at this
couple
point,
good mysteries here.
You're really pretty invested.
I think so. This was a great intro.
What's going on here? And it's pretty short. It's not super long. And you're playing the game quick. Yeah.
Oh, right away.
Love.
This game's all about the gameplay, the creative.
You get into it within. I would say. I don't know, I didn't count it, but within 60 seconds, not much more than that, you are actually playing the game, which is really important to me. I think that's huge. I think that every developer should get your players playing the game as quickly as possible in the intro and not drag it out with tons of exposition and dialogue. Yeah. So it does a really good job of that.
Yeah, it does.
But also, as we transition to the space station, this is where it goes completely black and white, monotone. There's no color up in the space station. And so that was an interesting thing. Okay, why are they doing that? But then on top of that, not only do our characters seem to be okay, but 2B has all of her memories of what happened there. So she comes out, and 9S is there, and it turns out that 9S had, as well as he could, tried to back up her memories at the expense of being able to back up his own.
Yeah,
there wasn't a lot of bandwidth. It took longer than it might have in a place like they're all right now or whatever. Yep. So he can't remember anything from that mission up to the point where he met her.
Yeah, up to the point.
But and she gets upset about this. So
she clenches her fist. Because it just seems like it doesn't matter. Yes. It seems like not a big deal at all.
Yes.
And they're explaining, and she kind of gets a little bit, not cold, she's always cold, I guess, but she doesn't really want to talk much about it, where he's like, what, did something happen? And she's like, no, I don't want to talk about it. And he's like, okay, that's fine. And then she gets really upset. And it's such an interesting thing to be upset about.
Yeah.
Now, I understand that. As humans, this is what Yoko Taro is so good at. Like, we know exactly what she's feeling, right? But in the context of the world, it is a little bit confusing why she feels the way she's feeling.
Right.
But she's really upset at the fact that even though he's alive, it's not the same
person.
Him.
Yes.
And she's not the same her.
Even though...
And that's frustrating for her.
Even though it's just a few memories.
Yeah, it's only like a few minutes. Yes.
It's still, this isn't the same person that I was just with, who she had in a short time developed some kind of attachment to, and had been really desperate to save.
Yeah, that's
for whatever reason. I mean, we don't know that for sure yet, but it's a way to sort of turn the tables a little bit on the concept of death in the context of androids who can have their memories backed up.
Right.
But that still works and is really effective. So he's still dead to her in a way.
Yes.
Even though the body is here.
That's a good point.
Even though most of his memories are here. My time spent with him in which we developed some kind of bond, even though it was short, is dead. And that person is gone. And
person's gone.
That's really cool.
That is
really cool.
Yeah.
That like death still means something even to the androids, even if it's just losing a little bit of your memory. It's like that's kind of what makes us who we are our experiences and our memories. Right.
Yeah.
It's like the body, the brain. It's all it's what you have. It's what you've experienced, as particularly with someone else and shared with someone else.
Yeah.
And how those memories are shared between you that that make a relationship, that make you the people that you are. So you take those away, you're not really the same person anymore, right? I just thought
even if it's just a little bit.
Even if it's just a little bit.
That's
it's
like
not the same.
For the rest of your life, you'll be like, I'm missing something.
Yep.
Something's missing. Even if it was a few seconds of life, a few minutes, I'm missing something. And you just can't get rid of that feeling.
Yeah, that feels just as precious after this So death still has a sting. It still has a meaning.
I also want to point out just the embodied factor, and I will talk a little bit more about this with the guy in his left leg, right?
Yeah.
But even though the body is so easily replaced, they don't want to replace their body, right? They still feel like you aren't the same person if you had to have, even if all of your memories are stored somewhere, when they're put into a different body, it's not the same. There's still something missing, and it's like it's something that's difficult to put your finger on, but it's something, and people can feel it, and people know it, and they will always feel incomplete because of that.
I wanted so badly to make a connection with the first game on this point, but I'm just not going to say anything about
that. We don't have to.
Anything at all. So, okay, this is where the glory to mankind salute comes in.
There's a few reasons for this. I would say that, evolutionarily speaking, one of the suggestions as to why humans are predominantly right-handed, as well as chimpanzees, is because the left hand is used for defense, the right hand is used for offense. That's like a simple way to kind of boil it down. The reason why the left hand is used for defense is because the heart is on the left side, right? But when you cover your heart, it's a defensive move. At least in part. It doesn't always have to be, but I feel like it is in this case because these are the defenders of humanity, right? And so what they're defending is like the heart of the core of humanity, right? Yeah. They salute with the left hand, and they cover their heart with their hand, which can be seen as like a defensive maneuver. And I think this has something to do with humanity just in general. Like the heart represents humanity, and when they cover their hand with, cover their heart with their left hand, and then they say, what do they say? Glory to mankind.
Glory to mankind.
Right? It's like, not only sacrificing themselves for mankind, but also doing this like kind of protective motion over what I would assume, in humans is a heart. For the androids, I don't know what's there.
Yeah, sure.
But that's what that movement would suggest.
Yeah. Mix is saying that they give themselves up for the defense of humanity.
Perfect. Yeah. And that's essentially what she did there. They sacrificed themselves for the defense of humanity, and they were able to embody that perfectly, although 2B is upset about it. She still, carried it through.
Yep. Yeah, and I took note of that shot where he walks away and she's tightening her fist, right?
Yep.
She's upset that this friend that she had made is gone, or that it will have to be reforged, but it's not really the same person. It's kind of it's just a different version of the guy.
It's just different. And this is a hard one. This is a hard one. And it's going to get harder for humanity going into the future as we determine what makes a human, right?
Yeah. So we kind of come to the command center of this base here. I'm going to kind of read the quote from the Council of Humanity that is on the screen here. This gives us a time and setting a little bit, not quite for like when it's happening now, but at least we know it's sometime past this. So 5012 AD, the year mankind's glorious history came to a sudden and abrupt end. So I just want to make a note real quick. The first game happened in 3465.
Right. So this is well after that.
This is way after. Yeah. Well, the part that they're talking about here, with the beginning of the war with humanity and machines began then, who knows how long it's been since then.
Right.
So 512 AD, the year mankind's glorious history came to a sudden and abrupt end when the world was invaded from beyond the stars. The aliens unleashed a new breed of weapon, machine life forms, that all but annihilated human civilization. The handful of survivors that remained fled from Earth, seeking refuge on the moon.
Yep.
Then, 5204 AD, so 200 years after the beginning of this war, humanity launched its counterattack, deploying an army of androids from a network of orbiting bases. So if they had to flee to the moon, where'd they get the resources to build all this stuff?
Well,
That's my question.
5000 AD, but in the context of NieR, I don't know.
Did they have colonies on the moon? I mean, again, I'm not trying to say too much about NieR's setting.
Yeah. But
there is an post-apocalyptic setting there too. So it's not like humanity developed its technology all the way up to uninterrupted to 5012 AD.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It was definitely interrupted.
So I had that question. Where are they getting the resources to build an android army on the moon?
That's a good question, and I look forward to talking about that in episode 7.
Okay. Okay, so where did I leave off? After more than a dozen large-scale descents upon the enemy, we still haven't managed to repel the invaders. That is why you, the Yorha forces, exist. To break this stalemate once and for all. You are our ultimate weapon, and you must put an end to this war.
The ultimate weapons.
Yep.
So, Yorha, this is Yoruha in Japanese. I've got the kanji for it. There is something online. I think this even came from Yoko Taro, but I'm going to contradict it.
Okay.
So it is translated, Yorha is translated as passing leaf, right?
Okay.
And that's sort of what these kanji could maybe mean. But it means other things as well.
Okay.
I would look at this based on what I looked at with the kanji and say, okay, what is Yoko Taro trying to say here? Passing leaf doesn't work for me. It doesn't make enough sense. But each kanji has like 10 readings, right? At least, in English, there's different ways to interpret it, right? So leaf can also mean like a sheet or like a sheet of paper or a blade or something flat, just like a flat thing, right?
Okay.
So, like a shard or something like that, right? And then the word for passing, the very first kanji, it could mean collect, or it could mean to gather, or it could mean to approach something. So I would look at this and say, oh, Yoruha is gathering the pieces, or picking up, or gathering the shards
of humanity's broken, glorious past.
Exactly. There is a broken, the broken mirror, and they're trying to put it back together.
Yeah.
So
makes sense.
that's what and this is not canonical at all, but this is a possible reading with the kanji, right? And so I think this makes sense with the theme of the game as well, right? So to approach or collect leaves, or to approach leaves, or to collect blades or shards, meaning to pick up the pieces. So that's really good stuff, I think. Did you get to talk to any of the people in that command center kind of when you were
I mostly just talked to the commander, not to the other NPCs too much.
The other NPCs have this like mouth covering. They have like a mask that they wear.
Right.
And then also, we haven't mentioned yet, but 2B and 9S have a blindfold.
Yes,
on,
the
right?
blindfold.
Just always wearing a blindfold.
So yeah,
I don't know
there's
exactly
a lot to talk about there.
Yes.
I don't know if you read this, but there was a play, like a stage play kind of thing for NieR that they released before the game even came out in Japan, I think. But anyways, in that, apparently, which I've not seen, so I can't confirm, but apparently in that, it's confirmed that these are like nanotech like displays. So they're like seeing through like some kind of digital display through those blindfolds.
That makes perfect sense.
But also there is symbolism wrought in this about following orders blindly.
Following orders, not questioning, right?
Yes.
And then not, not hearing anything other than what they're telling
what they're
you.
told.
So there is that. And I just find it fascinating. I don't know exactly. Anyways, there is a refusal to see something on the part of 2B and 9S.
Yes.
There is a refusal to say certain things on the part of 60, the operator. What's her name? The girl.
Yeah.
And then there's a refusal to hear things on the part of some other characters. So that's, I guess, important maybe for later on. But it is good to note, I think, that a lot of these operators are wearing a face mask, and then our characters are wearing blindfolds.
Yeah.
It is symbolic.
Yeah.
But it's not inhibitory in any way. Like, she can still see, and the other girl can still talk. Like, these aren't inhibiting any functions. They're only there symbolically.
Right. Which is really cool to work in a symbol like that, but then still make it somehow within your world like a practical thing, not just this looks cool. It's like,
now if it were a human, I'd have a problem. But as an android, it's like I don't know how they perceive sensory perception of the world. Like this isn't as big of a problem for me.
Yeah.
And I think it looks pretty cool, actually.
It looks sweet. So I really loved the way that they did the settings adjustments. With like the visuals and sound.
Yeah,
like,
that was fun.
This is almost in every game nowadays. They do this.
I know,
like
they
every modern game.
Because every plasma or LCD screen is like different, and so you've got to adjust your brightness settings.
It's like one of the first things you ever do when you boot up a game is, okay, now adjust your brightness so that you can barely see the one on the right and you cannot see the one on the left. Every game does this. Yeah. And so they do this in a way that like places it into the story, and it's kind of cool.
Because we're freaking androids. Yeah, right? It just makes sense. It's like,
the androids have
tune
operating systems and settings, and they're like computers a little bit, right? So they're going into their own settings and like adjusting them. And I love how they do that for the brightness, but then it's like, okay, you need to go into the sound settings and like increase the voice until you can hear me. And it no matter at what point you do that, it'll cut into 9S's dialogue as he's speaking to her trying. It's just really cool because like it might take you a little longer or not to like get in there and actually start turning it up. And so it just comes out so natural. He's like in the middle of a sentence and it's just like turning up. It's like, oh, now you can hear me.
That's good.
Like it was awesome. It was an awesome way of like taking that thing that they have to do at the beginning of every game, but then work it into the world building itself. Is so creative.
It was awesome. But as Yoko Taro is wont to do, he throws in this really subversive kind of like dark element to it as well. At the very end, when 9S says, oh, your self-destruct settings are off. So, here, let me fix that for you. Okay, now go into the menu. You have to do this yourself. Turn your self-destruct mode from off to on. Like, oh my gosh. Like, this is cool, but also, what is happening here? Like, it just kind of, it offends the sensibilities just enough to make you kind of, you're still going to do it, but you feel weird about doing it, right? But you're not going to stop playing this game because of it, it's so awesome, but you just feel so weird about it.
Yeah.
That's very good.
Yeah, and this is actually something you can do too. I don't know if you've seen this, but you can remove your operating system chip kind of at any point in the game, and it just immedially takes you to the start screen, and it just kills you right away.
Oh my gosh, no, I don't think I did that.
So if you mess with your operating system, because this is another really creative thing they do. The whole progression system in the game is sort of set up as like, you have a limited space, right? Like memory or just capacity, and you put different chips in that give you different bonuses.
Right.
But like, there's a certain limit to that. You can't put them all in. You have to like take this one out and put this one in, and they all have a different amount of almost like memory that they take up, right? So some might be really powerful, but they take up so much memory that you got to take out a lot of other things. It's pretty cool, but your operating system has to be a part of that calculation no matter what. If you remove that chip, you just die. So it's cool. It's creative.
That's funny.
I just saw something here, an article from space.com, moon packed with precious titanium, NASA probe finds.
Hooray.
According
titanium
to space.com,
a
lunar probe
worthless.
found areas of the moon rich in titanium. They consider mining it from the moon. So, okay, let's say they've got titanium. What about all the other resources you need to build? Copper was the big one.
Copper's a big one for electronics.
To build electronics, you need a lot of copper. So
and silicon.
Do they have all that too? Because metal's just one part of it.
Yeah, right, dude. So the moon base will be made of titanium. That's confirmed.
Okay, so...
I also wanted to bring up just the general look of everything. Everything is so black and white here.
Yeah.
It is so desaturated. There's tremendous symbolism here.
Yeah.
But as you're up on the space station, everything is black and white. And then when you're down on Earth, everything is full of color and vibrant and lively. But when you're up on the space station, it's black and white. I'll talk a little bit more about the symbolism there a little bit later. But it's
my thoughts on that are almost like worldviews become more nuanced when they get down away from the military conditioning where they've been taught to perceive
real fighting.
Yeah, they've been taught to perceive in black and white.
Yep.
And they find out it's not actually the way they were told it was.
But that's just so natural. And I love this too, because it's like the further detached you get from Earth, the more color. I don't know, the more detached though, the more color you lose, right? So when you're on Earth, when you're
away from Earth,
when you're on Earth, it's like you're in it, right? And there's more meaning, there's more color, there's more vibrance, there's more subtleties in life, right? But then when you live this detached digital existence that's like separated from touching grass, so to speak, or from being on Earth, from an embodied existence on the planet that you were created from, then the more detached you get from that, the more, I guess, the less freedom you have in a sense. But this kind of goes both ways, because so when your character is about to die, everything goes black and white again, right? Now this is really good because as you are about to die, who cares about music and color, right? Like you're fighting for survival. When you're fighting for survival, things turn black and white.
Yes,
that's a fact.
When you're
right, societies low. Yes, but
in the game, it goes
even speaking like anthropologically, right? Like a society that's about to die doesn't have time for freaking but let's appreciate the nuance of like no, dude, we don't have food. You're gonna die.
Yeah,
like you do what I say, or we all die.
Yeah,
right. And it becomes very rigid and very black and white when you're fighting for survival. When things get all comfortable, right? That's when it's like, let's explore the color and the poetry and all that stuff, right?
Sure.
But when you take that too far and you detach from Earth, things get black and white again, right? There's kind of like the spectrum between the raw instinct that is black and white, then the human freedom to rationally, to perceive the world in varying ways. Yes, exactly. And the existentialist stuff. And then, but at some point you even go beyond that. Like that level then takes you to, so it's once again, it's that kind of bell curve thing where on the left it's black and white, on the right it's black and white, but in the middle it's all colorful and stuff, right? So anyways, that's kind of, that's what I'm seeing here. But you see that when you detach from Earth, and once again, it still comes down to survival. But when you give up to technology and you detach from Earth, you end up going into this the black and white system just kind of returns naturally. It just
also the kind of horseshoe political spectrum thing.
Yes, once again, same
black
point.
and white
Same
on
point.
the ends. Yep. In the middle of the horseshoe is where...
That's where the color is.
Yeah,
right?
the color is.
And you could also see it as like yin yang, right? Where you've got the black and white on both sides, but then there's the middle path, right? That's synonymous with the straight and narrow path, right? The straight is the way and narrow is the gate, right? So that's such a good illustration between East and West, by the way.
Sure.
Because in the East, they're like, oh, this is the path, then it's curvy. And in the West, it's like, no, it's straight. And it just goes right there and it's straight.
Yep.
But the idea is that you don't go too far right, you don't go too far left. And that's with the yin yang as well. That the optimal life is to be found in between chaos and order, right?
Yep.
Not too much on either side.
Yep. But that line is not straight.
But the line is not straight in Eastern philosophy, right? And this would, in some place like Japan. But the idea is that that's where color is. Like it's not built into the symbol, but you would assume that as you walk that middle path, that's where the greatest meaning is to be found. And that's a Buddhist philosophy right there. But you see color when you're in the middle, but you only see black and white when you're on either end. Mm-hmm. It's good stuff.
I like how 9S, as he's doing maintenance on her, calls her ma'am again. He had forgotten that she told him not to do that, right? Because he didn't back up his memories.
Yeah.
So she tells him again, stop calling me ma'am. It's too formal.
Which is so funny because later on in the game, he's going to tell her to call him to address him a certain way, and she won't do it. So she's definitely got an authority position over him, it seems.
Yeah.
There's some rando who's just talking, right? Saying, oh, wow, you did such a good job on your mission. Good job. Try not to actually die, though, okay? And that just makes me wonder, how does actual death work? I guess if your server that holds your memories gets destroyed, so they would have to attack the space station in order for you to actually die.
Yeah,
something like that. It's interesting.
So they get called in here to talk to the commander about their next mission, which is to rendezvous with the resistance down on Earth and do recon work for them. But also, there is supposed to be a dedicated Yorha unit who's a contact for the resistance already. So it's like, why are you sending us to do this? We have somebody who's designated to do that job. And she tells us that they've lost contact with that designated contact. And we also want you to look into that. What happened to our Yorha person who's supposed to be doing this job? You're taking over a job, but then also tell us where did she go? So
I have a guess as to who this person is, but we don't
know at this point.
We do not know at the moment.
We do not know at this point. Okay, so then they tell him, go get in some flight units, and this was really interesting. 9S is really excited to get into a flight unit, and he says that grunts like him aren't usually allowed anywhere near them because they're so valuable and they can't be mass-produced yet. And so it's like, okay, then why was he given a flight suit on the last mission? There's another interesting mystery.
That's true.
Why was he in in the intro mission if, his scouting units are not supposed to go anywhere near these things? Why is he going on this mission with her is sort of a key mystery there. Yep. It's like he's just a scouting dude. Yeah. He's not like a combat unit like she is. He's telling you right there, I'm not supposed to go near these things usually. This is so sweet. And so why is he doing it now? But also, why was he doing it in the first mission? Why was he a part of that at all?
Yeah.
It was all Yorha units that are like 2B that were in our squadron.
Right.
Why did he just show up there, some scout dude, in a flight suit that they have when he's not supposed to usually do that?
He's her guardian angel.
Just an interesting question.
It is an interesting question.
To keep note for later. Okay, so they get down to the surface, right?
The Earth looks so crazy from above.
Yes.
It looks so cool.
Yes.
I love it. The view is so sweet.
It's awesome.
Like you're flying over the city, and it's all the vegetation growing over the buildings.
Growing over the top.
So cool.
Mm-hmm. So once you get onto the surface, there's a lot of really good dialogue from 9S and some of the other androids as you're just running from place to place. I think they do a good job because this was their first kind of attempt at an open world game, right? And one of the biggest complaints you get with open world games from players is there's nothing in it. I'm just running from place to place. There's nothing to do in between.
Right.
I don't really share that particular feeling too often. I'm a little bit like you where the journey
it's fun,
is sometimes part of the fun, not necessarily having some puzzle or fight to do like every second of the way.
Like, I just appreciate the immersion in the world.
Yeah.
At some point, sure, I guess it gets too much, but I don't really feel that at all in these games.
Yeah.
I appreciate the vastness of the world.
I especially with like Wind Waker's sailing. A lot of people complain about that being boring. And
but how? No, I will never understand that. I will never understand it. It is the music that plays, the swells of the ocean. Just it's serene and therapeutic, I think, to just go sailing in the Wind Waker.
Yeah, I agree. But one thing that they do here that I kind of like is as you're moving from place to place, they always seem to time or pace information in a way that keeps you going like, oh, okay, I'll chew on that for a while you're just running from place to place, kind of doing, side quests or errands or whatever. So I tried to take down a lot of the things that are said in those sorts of transitory times when you're moving to the desert or moving to that place. So you're on your way to the Resistance camp, and 9S says, according to our intel, none of the machines in this area are hostile.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
We've been seeing more and more enemies like this lately. They just stand there and stare into space.
You know what? I have a note right before that quote that says, I came across some robots that were not attacking me.
Yep.
So this happens even before he brings it up. You can see this, right? Mm-hmm. Some robots, they're just chilling. And that's the thing. They're just staring into space.
They're doing nothing.
Doing nothing, right? Mm-hmm. You could say giving up. You could say that they're suffering from some type of existential crisis, right? And so I think that's fascinating. Also, I got to bring this up because there are sometimes these things can bother me. It does not bother me in this game at all, but I do have to say that there would be almost zero visible trace of human existence after 5,000 years.
Yes, probably.
So we're about 5,000 years past this point.
Yep.
It would only take 1,000 years for most visible signs of human civilization to just be completely gone.
Yeah.
Based on erosion, earthquakes, plant life, animal life, like all this stuff it would crumble all these buildings. Maybe for some very super concrete parts of the world, a few more thousand years. But by 5,000 years, like what we're seeing now would be the way a city, an abandoned city that humans haven't lived in for 500 years, maybe.
Might look, yeah.
Not 5,000 years.
Yeah.
So, but that being said, this is really cool and I love it and I don't care at all. Like, I think it's sweet. I love what they're doing.
Well,
and it would not be the same game if they really had everything erode to the point that it
also take into account that the machines are still here and they are
they keeping things up?
Well, they were in that factory in the first part.
That's a good point.
They had totally I
didn't think of that.
They were using it to manufacture more machines.
That's true.
So there could be some level of upkeep. I don't know if they would do that for like an apartment complex.
No, it seems that they didn't. Those complexes are not in good shape.
Yeah. So what you're saying would still apply to, areas like that. But I do think that there's at least a point to be made that the machines are probably upkeeping certain structures to some degree because they live there and manufacture themselves there. And like machines took over the world, basically.
Yeah, so. That makes sense.
Okay, so once you reach the Resistance camp here, a character named Anemone is like the captain. I don't know if there was anything into that name. It's a very strange name. I've never heard it before.
Well, a sea anemone. Is it anemone or is it an enemy?
Anemone.
Anemone. A sea anemone is the thing that the clownfish live in. It's like the little thing with like the finger tentacles, and then the clownfish, but it shocks other fish.
Yeah,
right?
I've never heard.
But clownfish, like in Finding Nemo, it's like their house.
I went to an aquarium recently.
There you go.
I saw that, but I forgot that that's what it's called.
Yeah, it's called a sea anemone. But I don't know what that freaking means for this girl either. It's got to mean something.
There's other characters like Jackass that just maybe they just take arbitrary human words as names. I don't know.
Some of the names do mean something, though.
Sure.
Some of them do mean something.
Sure.
I'll get into some of it a little bit later. I think it's a little too early for that. But yeah, but the way you said it at first, you said an enemy.
An enemy,
exactly,
instead of anemone.
But that sounds like it could mean something if it's saying an enemy.
That's fair. But she's kind of like not shocked, but just like in awe almost of 2B.
Yeah, she says, "You're number 2.
Oh, you're number 2. Yeah.
Very cryptic. She does not elaborate.
No, because 9S is like, "Oh, you know about 2B?" And she's like, yes, well, the bunker told me to expect you, like some excuse to like, deflect.
So we are number 2.
There's something important about number 2.
Yes. I don't know what it means.
But yeah.
But there's something.
Anemone knows something we don't know. And she basically tells you, like, hey, you can go around and do, side quests for people around here. Yeah. Everyone needs help. Like,
they wouldn't talk to us until we talked to her first.
Yeah.
But after we talk to her, she gives everyone permission that, like, hey, these people are cool.
Yeah. So you go around talking to them, picking up some side quests, collecting things, giving you some time to get around, learn the landscape a little bit.
Yeah.
Fight a few enemies here and there, unlock some of those, I don't know what they're called. I forget what they're called, but they unlock more of the map. They're like little vending machines almost. What do they call those things? They're like...
Oh, those things. Yeah. Well, I can't remember.
And there's always like some machines
Eventually
around them.
It becomes like
you go and kill the machines and then you
thing, right?
you unlock it. And then you can save your game at them or you can...
Yeah.
What are they called?
I can't remember what they're called.
But they unlock more of the map for you.
Yeah.
So you're going on doing that.
The music is so good.
The music's amazing. I put that out for that too.
Yes, at this point. It just takes me back to the original NieR. Apparently this is the same woman's
Emmy
voice.
Evans.
Yep, the same musician.
Yep, same singer.
And once again, I'm trying to figure out what she's saying.
Yes.
And I just have to remember it's not...
It's a made-up language.
She is saying something, but you will not ever know it because she has disguised the words so well.
Yeah.
And it's so beautiful. I love it.
Yeah. I wrote that she is now kind of an integral part to the soundscape of a NieR game.
Yeah, totally.
If you don't have her singing some beautiful
like
little
serene,
piece in the
yeah.
village or like hub area,
right.
then like it's not a NieR game.
It's not a NieR game. It can't be.
Not without that. But I thought it was great that they brought her back again.
Yeah, me too.
I don't think anything is going to top the track that plays in NieR Gestalt's Village. Like that,
that was
music
so
is
good.
Just unbelievably good.
Yeah,
but
beautiful.
This is still great too. I really like this track as well. I loved how there was an NPC here called Strange Resistance Woman wearing an Emil mask.
Yeah.
She's like,
was so good.
My mask? It's an electromagnetic wave shielding device. I wear it to limit unnecessary information from the world.
Now that's crazy.
Just kidding. And then she sells you stuff or whatever.
She's just screwing around. And well, people are just doing silly things to what, are they bored, right? Or something like that, right? Where it's like, I don't know, I've been here around. I don't know how old these androids are. But centuries, at least centuries.
That is definitely something to keep in mind is these are pre-Yorha android
that's
units.
Right. So they could be 1,000 years old.
They've been fighting down here against these machines for longer than the Yorha have existed.
Yeah.
So it's been a long time. And they kind of give off that vibe, like they're a little bit more relaxed, I guess, or just not as rigid as like the Yorha military is or seems to be. They're a little bit more. I don't know. There's not a sense of urgency from them in the same way, and that could come from fighting for a longer time and not really getting anywhere. Right.
That's true. Yeah, the uselessness, so the futility of the whole
situation of the fight that they're fighting. Okay, so I took down this dialogue here. The Council of Humanity has a message for all of our brave androids fighting on the surface. This is after... Sorry, I should mention that this comes after you've done some of the errands and gone back, talked to Anemone again, and she's like, hey, we've heard about a huge mass of machines gathering in the desert, more than usual. We want you to go check that out and like gather some intelligence for us, find out what's going on there. We think something big is happening. So you're on your way there to the desert. And then this broadcast happens from the Council of Humanity. The Council of Humanity has a message for all our brave androids fighting on the surface. Currently, our struggle against the machine life forms is at a stalemate. This battle has raged for far too long. I am sure all of you find the effort grueling, but now is not the time to give up. Now more than ever, we must forge on. Remember that several 100,000 humans on the moon want nothing more than to return to Earth. Glory to mankind. And then 9S says, these council broadcasts are always so stiff. An android says that these broadcasts are stiff to so apparently funny. A human on the Council of Humanity. Now, I'm not sure like how I want to go about reading into this other than drawing on some of my own experience that I don't necessarily want to get into so much. But this felt a lot like the sort of speech I would hear when I was a missionary, right? Like, I know it's tough. I know it's a grueling thing.
Sure. Well, like people need to be told certain things.
Like, you got to keep going. You can't give up now.
I would say people who've ever been in the military, you've probably had that speech 100 times.
Even worse, yeah.
Or a sports team, right? Yeah. If you ever play basketball, and it's like, I have a theory that it's the exact same speech given every halftime. Every halftime, like pep speech, it's the same speech every single game.
Yes.
And I've been a coach of like a small level team before, like teenagers and stuff. But I remember every time at halftime, I'm like, guys, we just got to push it a little harder. We're almost there. We're up 12. It doesn't matter what we're down 20. We're still going to give it our all. Like, no matter what it is, it's the same thing every time. And
it's rote. It's predictable.
But it's like glue. It's something that does in some way help to adhere a group together in the same goal, right? You've got to keep pounding in, like, make sure that we all have the same goal. We're all sharing the same struggle. We're all going through the same thing, but we're doing this for a reason, and we're gonna be stronger because of it. All that kind of stuff. It adheres you to like a higher principle that makes the group more cohesive, I think.
So the direction I was going to go with this, there's a funny way that the collector has put it.
Yeah.
So I'll say this first because I think it's hilarious. He says 2B, but I think I would input the Council of Humanity instead of 2B, spreading that android copium. So that's kind of what it is.
After thousands of years, it's totally copium.
It's propaganda in the form of copium to get people to keep pressing forward. But what I thought about while this broadcast was happening, as I'm playing the game, was a little bit about what we touched on in episode 1.
Yeah.
About how I've come to the conclusion that humanity actually hates peace, right?
So has Yoko Taro. I have a quote from him I'll read later on, but yes.
That if things are too peaceful for too long, and you kind of see this in the cycles of civilizations anyways.
That's when revolutions I don't know.
It's like if things are too peaceful and too easy in life, people seem to find a way to create problems and tensions and things to overcome, right? It's almost like in order for us to feel like we have a purpose or a meaning in life, we have to have a villain
struggling against something.
And something struggling to overcome.
Yeah.
And so
that's why the Sisyphus analogy is so good.
Yeah. And so despite the fact that this is very rote and repetitive and you've heard this a million times, there is something about it that is kind of integral to people finding or feeling like they have a purpose or a reason to fight.
Right.
Like, even though it's hard, it's what gives you a reason to live. What was it that Camus said, that quote we read last time, where like whatever is keeping you from killing yourself is the meaning of life, or something like that?
The only true philosophical question is whether or not to end your life. Yeah.
And so I feel like this works because people need to feel like, yes, this grueling thing I'm going through, it's so hard, but like I need to keep doing it. I need to keep doing what's difficult and hard, because if I did and we just stopped fighting the machines, well, then what purpose would there be in life?
Well,
that's a big part of this game's question.
To your point earlier about the propaganda, that's essentially what I heard from the U.S. government about why we can't withdraw from Iraq.
Yep.
For 20 years.
Yep.
They said, well, what about all the people who've already died fighting there? Mm-hmm. We'll be disgracing them if we pull out now.
Yep.
And for 20 years, I heard that exact propaganda line until finally we pulled out and it was a disaster. But anyways, or maybe I'm thinking more of Afghanistan. Either way, though, it was a similar line of reasoning. Where
Middle East.
What about the Battle of Fallujah? Oh, and that was, we can't let it go. We can't. But at some point, you talk about what is the idea of water under the bridge or a sunk cost.
Yes,
sunk costs are irrelevant to future decisions.
Yes.
So.
Should be, right?
They should be. They aren't. The way humans work, they aren't, but
we don't. We tend not to, but life's a lot easier when you live by that.
It is.
Instead of hanging on to like, well, but I fought this hard all this time. Is that for nothing? No, just forget about that. It's no longer worth doing, right? Anyway, again, I feel like the steady pace at which they are building, it's almost in every scene, and even if it's not a scene, even if it's just traveling from one area to the next, they are slowly like layering on this core theme we've identified in episode 1. And so I'm just trying to keep an eye on that, and each time that they sort of touch on that.
Yeah, another hammer hitting the nail.
Let's spread another layer of icing on that, you know?
Yeah.
Let's just go a little further with it. So,
you know what I love too about the fact that the bunker is up in outer space, right? Because you would think a bunker is down below ground. You go up to this outer space place. And this is from whence these propagandistic messages are emanating.
Yes.
Right. So the messages are coming literally. They're coming from heaven. Right. So we've got some more words for you from above, from on high, essentially. And this is what we need to hear to be able to move together in unity above this like principle that's literally you're like from the skies, right? From the stars, from outer space.
Yeah.
I think it's really good.
Yep. Good stuff. Okay, so when you get into the desert itself, you start getting attacked by more machines that are wearing clothing, and they are saying some pretty unsettling things.
Yeah.
So, Tubi will bring it up. These machines are talking.
Yes, and they're saying like, ouch, that hurts.
Yes, or I'm scared.
Please stop, yeah.
Or enemy, scary.
Yeah.
Things like this, right? Exterminate the enemy. So 9S responds to that. Yeah, I heard from the Resistance that they've been seeing this a lot lately. Couldn't tell you why though. And then they keep going, and she's like, they're saying things like, "No, stay away."
Yeah.
And I think Tubi says, "What's with these weird outfits that they're wearing?" And 9S says, "I've seen that sort of thing when I was going through some old data. It looks like what humans used to wear long ago.
Yeah.
Certain human collectives used to use face paint like that too."
Right.
So these machines are adopting, like we said, cultural customs and behaviors from humanity's past, which is data that they have access to. They're saying things like, "Scared, help me, help me." Tubi is just alarmed by this. And Tubi, it's fine. Their speech doesn't mean anything. They're just emitting words at random. If they wanted help, why would they be attacking us? So I love how I love this line. Because the first part of it, I go, don't think so. The second part of it, well, there's some truth to that. So you don't know what to believe, right?
That's true.
Because he's saying they're just emitting words at random. But it doesn't seem random.
No, it does not.
It wouldn't. If it was random, they'd be saying sand, water,
blue,
earth,
wood,
sky, clothing, fire, beach face. Like that would be random, right?
That would be random.
No, what they're saying is relevant to what's happening. Yeah. So it's not totally random. But at the same time, if they wanted help, why are they attacking us? There might be something to that where it's like, okay, maybe they're kind of picking up on what they should say in the situation, but not exactly.
Right.
They still haven't quite understood how to use this language the right way yet.
But whoever said that when people are scared, they don't lash out or attack?
Sure.
Right.
That's true as well.
That's a snake in a corner or something, like it's scared of you, but it's going to bite you, right?
Yeah. So this is what I was referring to earlier when I said some of the machine dialogue I feel is a little too on the nose to be quite as unsettling as I think it's meant to be. I feel like Taro sometimes just overdoes it a little bit. Like, help me, scared. Whereas, like, if it had just been one guy goes down, you stab him, and in the middle, he's like, help, I'm dying, or I'm scared. Even just that, I'm scared as a robot dies.
Because the dialogue tends to repeat throughout, for as long as it takes for you to kill them, every minute or so, it's like you're going to hear it over and over.
And we've gone over this 1,000 times at this point, but repetition loses impact. You lose impact on something the more you repeat it. That being said, I don't think it's a huge issue. It's just something that came to my mind.
Sure.
I think it could have been a little more subtle than this, but okay. So then they come to a place where there's a ton of android bodies sort of gathered, and the Pod 043 says hypothesis they were killed by local machine life forms. It's like, okay, duh. But what are they doing here? It's like they were gathered here, says 9S. So these machines are like taking android bodies and like gathering them to this place. So you keep going down below into this structure. And the machine. This part was pretty unsettling. I like.
Oh,
this.
yes, it was.
So
this was crazy.
You have a machine rocking an empty cradle, saying "child, child,
yeah.
child," and others are sort of making the best attempt they can to reenact sexual acts,
human things. Yeah.
saying "my love, together forever." Things like this. Yeah. They don't. It's just obvious they don't quite get
clearly
what they're doing.
Yeah.
But they're at least in the right ballpark about it.
Right.
So they're evolving.
Yeah.
They're making strides toward getting what humanity was all about.
And they're completely ignoring us until we attack first.
Right.
You can wait a while before that happens.
And at this point, I start throwing 9S's BS about them not knowing what they're doing out the window entirely. It's okay, this is not random. This is way too directly correlated with what the thing they're trying to represent is. They understand. They have intelligence to some degree. You can't keep using that excuse.
Yeah, you can't deny it.
He keeps trying to, but it's like, no, dude, that's not how this works. So you go down and you start attacking them, and they get pissed, and they're like, oh, I'll get you for this kind of a thing. They start saying that, right? There's a sense of vengeance for having killed my baby almost in their retaliation. But then they start acting all erratically. They start converging together and doing all this weird stuff. And there's this birth that happens from inside the machine.
It's freaking insane.
And this, what looks like an android body is born. It's naked, long silver hair, but it looks like them. But 2B says no, it's not. Or maybe 9S says no, it's not an android. It's a machine for sure. But why does it look like us, right? And I love how, remember how we talked about, what would this have been in? I can't remember which podcast, about the whole, like, the second you're born, you're being attacked. And how freaky that is.
Yeah, which one was that?
We were talking about the BBC documentary,
the lizards.
Planet Earth 2. And the lizards get born, and like the second they're born, snakes try to eat them, and they have to try to escape to the sea, or else they like die the second they're born. And, like, imagining how crazy that would be if the second you're born, you're like being hunted, and you have to have survival instincts immediately and run. That's basically what's happening to this thing.
Yes.
Like the second it's born, is being attacked by androids, and it has to evolve very quickly.
You could say that that would have affected the way that this character perceives the world.
Yes,
as well,
for sure.
That as soon as it's born,
androids.
it has to fight. Yes, and particularly androids, because spoiler alert: we are not able to kill this individual. No. But he keeps evolving. He keeps getting better and better.
Yeah, he's getting better at fighting us the more we fight. And so at 9S is like, you got to take it out quick. It's learning. It's like learning from us. It's like, so it's saying things like, androids, like, why fight? Why are you fighting me?
And at first the voice is really digital sounding.
Garbled.
It's like all garbled, but eventually the voice starts sounding more and more human. Right? Very interesting. It's like this individual is learning from us as we're fighting it and talking. Yep. He's learning, this is how humans do things and all of that, right?
Right.
So we're training it to fight us.
Right. And then as you're fighting and it's adapting, it says sword, dodge, projectile, deflect. So it's starting to deflect your projectile attacks.
And then it gets a lot harder at that point.
It's like, ooh, it's like the fight's becoming harder.
Yeah.
And then after I put quote unquote kill it, right? Blood is flowing everywhere.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And 2B asks, is this really a machine?
Right, because it seems like a person.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, this is crazy, right? And then a second android, and I don't know, how much further is it before they reveal the names of these characters?
I wrote the names down, but
it's before NEA, right? So
I don't think it's a huge spoiler.
We can say their names now?
Their names.
Okay.
I don't think it's a huge spoiler.
So later, these characters are called Adam and Eve.
Adam and
from the rib, from the
his
side,
chest, his ribs.
The dead person, android machine we just killed, a second one is born, right? This is basically straight out of the Bible, from the rib, right? From
Genesis 3, I think.
Yeah, right. So Eve is born.
Or 2, 3. This is, they're almost identical, right?
Yes, there's like almost
maybe
mirrored.
Their hair's a little different.
They're mirrored a bit,
that's a good point.
but they're basically exactly the same.
Basically identical. They look somewhat androgynous, right? They presented as male, but they're naked and they aren't completely male, you could say. and they have really, long hair and some feminine features.
Yes.
But they are clearly men, so there's some androgynous thing. This actually brought me back to an old Proto-Indo-European myth. There's something called the Orphic egg, and this was in some Greek, religions from a very long time ago. But the Orphic egg gave birth to an hermaphroditic being, basically something that was both. That then, kind of continued the process of creation. But Plato has ideas of this nature. Plato said that mankind was initially both together until they got separated.
Yeah.
Right. So, anyways, when I see this, my mind kind of goes here a little bit. The concept of a cosmic egg giving birth to a being that's neither male nor female comes from ancient Proto-Indo-European mythology, right? So in this case, the robots who form a single unity, a hyperbody that is capable of giving birth to one who will protect them, right? But also capable of giving birth. So it's like none of them individually gets what it's like to be a human.
Yes.
But all together, the collective of each of them sort of trying and in different ways trying can essentially equal like one human. Right?
Yes, right.
So it's something like that. Something like that is happening here. But also this being is incredibly powerful. So you could say that the reason they even did this in the first place is because they were just getting slaughtered by 2B and 9S. And so it's like they needed something to have some hope in, to have some faith in, something that can protect them, right?
Yeah.
So Adam is essentially born. So this is a god of sorts, like the ancient Greek Phanes, also called protogonos. So proto means first, and gonos, or genus, sometimes he's called protogenes, which is the same thing, or similar thing. Gonos means seed, genos means birth, but it's where the word gene comes from, right? Essentially, protogonos was the first birth, or the first seed, came from this Orphic egg, and is hermaphrodite, according to the Proto-Indo-European mythology.
Yeah.
So he so he is literally called the first seed or the firstborn, or in Judeo-Islamo-Christian terms, Adam, because Adam's name means mankind. It just means like all of mankind.
Yes.
It means everything, right? When it's used as a noun, right? One side of whom was Eve. Right, because the Hebrew word that's used for what we know as rib, it essentially means side. Right, it says God took from the side of Adam.
Yes,
and that's where Eve comes from. Right. So if you want to take it literally, it's like Adam means mankind, and then God's like, hey, this side are all females. This side are males, and it's like you can imagine there's like 1,000 people in front of them or something like that, right? Like, I'm not saying that this is the only way to interpret the Bible. This is just a way of reading, this text. I have a little bit here. Okay, yes, this is good. So God took Eve from the side of Adam, Eve, of course, being Adam's other half, so that they could reunite in one flesh, right? Very interesting. Some could read this text as Adam having been hermaphroditic at first and then was separated one side from the other into two peoples. I don't know if that's a legitimate way to read the text or not, but I think that interpretation might be valuable for NieR Automata, at least.
Yes.
So that's what I've got. The fact that Adam means mankind, essentially, is very interesting given Yorha's motto, which is glory to mankind, right? And so these robots have created the essence, they found the essence of a human.
Yes.
And then made it exist, right? So essence preceded existence in this sense, right? They had to get an idea of what it was, and then they were able to create this thing, right, that now exists, right? But that is sort of a pretty human-looking kind of being here. So
I have like 3 things I want to say here. Hopefully I can remember them in full. It's all good. First of all, I forgot to bring up the "this cannot continue" line, which I thought was great.
That's right.
All the robots are fighting you, and then they start going crazy. This cannot continue. This cannot continue. This cannot continue. Yeah. Which I think would be a great title for this episode, by the way. This cannot continue.
Hold on.
But that's what they do when they like gather up together. It's like a really iconic line from the game. That "this cannot continue" thing.
This cannot continue.
This cannot continue is of all the robot machine dialogue, this is like my favorite one so far. It's just it's unsettling in a way that's just like, man, like something is going on with these things, and I should not be killing them like this indiscriminately. Like they are feeling something about what I'm doing to them. Right. So it really gets that point across. The other thing was in regards to the androgyny or possible sexless nature of Adam and Eve at this time. Right. I think I'll have more to say on this after reading The Second Sex from Simone de Beauvoir or whatever. I don't know how to say these names. I'm really sorry. Not French. French is hard for me. There's a reason I gave it up for Spanish in high school. Anyway, I think there will be more to say on that because that character, or the character based on that philosopher, will come up in the next episode. And I think there's probably something there to be read into what you're talking about with they're not born a certain way, they sort of become. Yeah. Which is, again, an existentialist sort of philosophy, right?
Right, that's
that
true.
you choose what you are. You aren't born. There's not you're not, the essentialist philosophy would say you're born a certain way and you were designed to be that, and because you have this part, that means you are this. Right, yes. And it was destined before, at birth or before birth or whatever. The existentialist view is no, the essence of me is created by me, by the choices I make in my life. So I think there's something to that too, as these machine androids that were just born begin to make choices.
And try to conform to some idea of what they are supposed to be.
Yes. Right. Yeah. So I feel like the existentialist sort of philosophy will kind of come through them throughout the game, or at least I'm expecting that. Yeah. And the third thing I don't remember, so I'll have to come back to it another time. But the place starts to collapse. And, I remember the third thing. Oh, yeah. The third thing was the second being, which was Eve, that came from the side of Adam, definitely has a much more chaotic level of emotional expression. It screams at us, and the whole place starts coming down. That's right. It was not as sort of, I don't know what word to use, but again, we're talking about the yin-yang here. Right. Yes, and then the yin being the feminine side, and feminine is not gender. We said this a billion times. Hopefully you watch the last episode, you get more about that. But Eve representing the feminine, Adam representing the masculine. Yeah. In the yin and yang, you have like the obsession with logic, the orderliness, the needing order or establishing order on things being the yang side, and the way that machine was fighting you was very much almost a logical approach. It was like, wait, I'm analyzing you as you're fighting me. Why are you doing this to me? Yep, okay, if you do this, I should do this. Okay, if you do this, I should do this. There's a very yang approach to how it interacted with us. As soon as Eve came out, it was just, it's super chaotic, right?
Yes. And that will carry on. There's another way that you can kind of see this happening, that Eve is a lot more in touch with kind of maybe the more emotional side of humanity, whereas Adam is more in touch with maybe the culture or the a different view of humanity. And you'll see that as they start like wearing clothes and things. Yeah. I'll be bringing that up throughout the
and so there's a very kind of a yin-yang aspect to these two characters, I think so. Which you're getting the Western and Eastern kind of mixed into how these characters are presented here. Yeah. But anyway, that was the other thing I want to say. Now, we're going to kind of wrap up here because the place is collapsing. You're having to escape. Eve picks Adam up, like lifts Adam up, and
that's right.
They get away, you presume, while you're kind of escaping. And it's like, we got to get somewhere where we can get a better signal because this is crazy, the way these machines are behaving, and we got to report this. They need to know what's going on here. So you're getting out to make that report. And then
it's like, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Like 10,000 years in the future, you still need to get service. I just think it's funny. They also still have books, apparently. Yeah. It's good stuff.
So we got, so you're told to go to another area and do some more investigation there. Yeah. It's a place with more vegetation, more plants and stuff like that.
But you're always returning back to the resistance camp because they send you on quests and stuff and all that. 9S brings up an interesting point that those characters from earlier were humanoid in form. Yes. He asks why robots would make themselves look like humans, right? Yeah. Because androids are made in the image of humans.
Yes. That's the line as you're going to the next place. So to be those machines out in the desert looked like androids, right? But we androids were modeled after our human creators. So why would machines try to look like us? There's no point trying to work out unsolvable problems.
Yes, 2B's like, enough with that. Once again, 9S does embody more of the yang, and 2B embodies more of the yin. Not all the time, though.
Yes.
Not all the time.
But in certain ways, it's actually the other way around.
You're right, in certain ways, because she is a lot more, what would you call it?
Less emotional.
Confrontational. She's she's easier to go up and like, well, she's more of a fighter, whereas he's more of the stay back and watch and analyze, right? But he does have these, these questions and he's perceiving these things, and 2B is kind of like, don't ask questions, right? Don't worry about it. Don't let your feelings get in the way.
Yeah, right.
Of course, then she has her her feelings kind of crop up a lot as well.
Yeah.
In certain points. But also, this is good because if androids are made in the image of humans, androids were thus made to serve humans, being made in their image, right? So why would robots be made in that image as they want to destroy humans? There is a
mystery there.
A big mystery there.
Yep.
I do want to bring up before we finish off this one, as you go back to the camp, right? To the resistance camp.
Mm-hmm.
There's the one guy, you go back to the weapons trader, you do some stuff for him, and he's like, oh, great, I can make more weapons now. But then he kind of asks this question. He's like, I don't know that I really love making weapons. Like, I make weapons so that you guys can fight better. But what if getting you better weapons makes you die all the faster?
Mm-hmm.
He's just kind of wondering.
Question.
and then he does it, right? He's got a job to do. He's been doing this for thousands of years probably. But he's wondering, like, the better weapons I get, the better weapons everyone gets, and then the quicker everyone dies.
Yeah.
Then there's the guy with the left leg. He's talking about, I'd love to go be able to dance again, and because we're asking him questions about his leg, and he won't really talk to us much. But I think after we get him some of the stuff that he wants for his quest, he opens up to us a little bit.
Yeah.
And he says, well, okay, truth be told, my left leg is original. It was the same leg that I was initially created with. Mm-hmm. Every other part of my body has been replaced or different nuts and bolts and, fixes and repairs and upgrades. But my left leg is original. And because of that, it doesn't work very well. Mm-hmm. But, that's how it is, right? So this is the ship of Theseus problem. Right?
Oh, yeah.
So it's like if you replace every part on the ship of Theseus.
Is it really the same?
Is it still the same ship?
I've actually had those thoughts about myself because there's a certain point in which all the cells in your body are no longer the same as the ones you had when you were born, right?
This is true. This isn't 100%. It's like 99%. Yeah. 98% true. So it's like every 7 to 10 years, your bones, a lot of the cells in your body are totally regenerated.
Yes.
Right? Some of your body is regenerated like every 2 months, right? But the neurons in specifically the frontal cortex, I think, of your brain.
Those can live to be pretty old.
I believe those are just, they never die or are reborn. They just are always constant. But other than that, every other cell in your body is completely different from what you were born with.
Yeah.
But yet you would still say that was me.
Yeah.
Back then.
I have these thoughts sometimes of meeting somebody who was a friend in high school or somebody even before that. And it'd be like, dude, I'm just not the same human being anymore.
Not even
in
physically.
The literal sense, I am not. Like, I'm
true.
A totally different person now, and so are you. And like, we haven't had contact all this time. We grew apart or whatever. It's just something I've thought about. But
yeah. So the ship of Theseus, eventually the only thing that's left is the name, right?
Yeah.
If you still call it the ship of Theseus, well, it's still got one thing left that, given that everything else has been replaced. But this is so interesting because given that he won't replace his leg, this means that he finds meaning in suffering, right? Because he's suffering on purpose.
Yes.
He could easily have this fixed. He's suffering on purpose because it gives him meaning.
Yes.
Right? That's fascinating.
Yes.
So he finds purpose in not being 100% perfect. In order to be functionally complete, he would have to sacrifice something more valuable. But I believe him earlier, though, when he said that he would love to be able to dance again.
Yeah.
But nothing happens without sacrifice. You have to give up one thing in order to do another. This is basically the idea of opportunity cost. It's like sacrificing, right? It's just the pattern of the world. Either he sacrifices his ability to dance to maintain a continuous sense of self, or he sacrifices his continuous sacred self in order to be able to dance.
Yes.
But either way, he's sacrificing something in order to either stay as he is or to become something else.
Yep.
His left leg is what connects himself to his past. His entire being from beginning to now is connected only through that one leg. And he doesn't want to lose touch with his connection to that past. It's more valuable than anything else to him.
Yes.
Despite being a sacrifice. He's sacrificing everything else in life to maintain that connection to history, basically.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. But it's even more interesting given that 2B and 9S just sacrificed their bodies and got completely new bodies.
Yep.
Like an hour ago.
Yep.
Okay, probably days ago. I don't know how long it takes to
long
regenerate a new body. Yeah. Maybe years ago. Who knows? But he's telling these people who have only been, who got brand new bodies very recently that like, yeah, right, I wouldn't be the same person if I had a brand new body, right? I don't know. So that's going to cause, well, I don't know that it's, we'll see. We'll see if we bring this up again later. But that's very good.
Yeah.
But this is good because, as I talked about sacrifice earlier, 2B and 9S had sacrificed their bodies for the greater good, right? To the higher goal of Yorha, their central command. The corporation, you could say. Corporation means body or embodiment, right? Corpse, right? Corporeal. Yeah. So the word corp is the same as the word corpse. In order for the corporation to be a body, it requires the sacrifices of its constituent elements to the higher goal that unites them all together as a single unified body. And that higher goal is kind of emanates down as a revelation or as a kind of an idea almost, like those propaganda videos that keep coming down. Those are meant to unify everyone as a corporation to cohere, as in unity, right?
Yeah.
But it requires everybody to sacrifice their, what would you call it? Their idiosyncratic self, like their me, their personal wants, their individuality. That's a good way.
Individuality.
So they have to give up their individuality so that they can be part of this greater body that's the collective, right? But that requires them to sacrifice that part of themselves, and they're constantly doing it. 2B and 9S are constantly doing it.
Yeah.
So 9S and 2B give up their connection to the past. They give up their bodies or their continuous sense of self to the greater body of Yorha. And then also within the resistance, we see androids that are living a more embodied existence, right? This is what I was talking about before. They're on Earth, not floating in space. Yep. They have a more physical connection to the real world, but they're also less unified, right?
Yes,
this is where you get the idiosyncratic, like, oh, I don't care what Joe does, like,
I think for myself, I'm not going to be part of the tribe or the collective. I'm going to do my own thing, blaze my own trail. Yeah.
Blaze my own trail, exactly. They aren't a strict, rigid body or a corporation. They're a lot more individualistic. Instead of living in the detached outer space world of black and white, where everyone dresses alike, they live in the rich, colorful, filled earth, and they seem more unique because of it. Yeah. So,
yeah, good stuff.
Oh man, did you ride a moose or a boar?
I didn't ride them.
You didn't ride one?
No.
It's pretty fun. It's pretty fun.
You can ride on them. I didn't even realize you could do that.
That takes me back, dude. Well, I only knew that because of NieR. So.
The first NieR.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
Right, but because of that, I was like, I wonder
if you can do it.
Oh, okay. You can do it.
Okay, nice.
So it's really fun.
So they put that in there. That's funny.
Yeah.
All right. So, anyways, that's where we're gonna leave off for this week.
Yep.
But the next mission, they say that several Yorha units were on their way to the surface, and their black boxes are online. So we presume that they're alive. We've tracked their location, and you need to go, investigate. So we're going to go try and find out what happened to these Yorha units that were coming down and kind of got lost or whatever. Yeah. And you arrive at a Disneyland-looking theme park. The area is just called Amusement Park.
Amusement Park.
Yep.
And the robots are dressed like jesters and throwing confetti and just having a party, right?
Yep, that's exactly
They're doing what humans do in amusement parks.
That's what we'll pick up next time. Yeah. Again, we've kind of said play through the end of Ending A. That's what I'm going to... I wasn't able to get that far this week, but by next time, I'm pretty sure I'm going to finish with Ending A. We may turn that into 2 more episodes or whatnot, but
yeah, because we didn't.
That's the goal for me, is to finish at least that far for next time. So, thank you for joining us. We appreciate you as always, and we'll see you next week. Peace out.